Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for this information session on Dine in Brooklyn. My name is Sonali. I'm with the New York City Hospitality Alliance. We are the independent trade organization that advocates and serves New York City hospitality operators. Since launching in 2012, thousands of businesses have joined our alliance. I'd love to speak with you afterwards and provide more information on how you can also become a member. I'd like to thank the Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams and his team, including Eileen Newman, for giving us, the New York City Hospitality Alliance, the opportunity to be a part of Dine in Brooklyn. We have a great session with great speakers lined up for you today. We're going to start with Beatrice Stein, founder of Beatrice Stein Consulting. She's going to cover training for your staff and other best practices for a successful Dine in Brooklyn experience.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. My specialty is front of the house training, so the conversation is really about the different things that would be helpful for you to talk about with your staff prior and during Dine in Brooklyn. So there's a little bit of a pass out if you got that. So what's most important is that all of your staff be on the same page, that everybody has all of the information so that they buy into the program just like you did. So the questions are really, what is Dine in Brooklyn? Because they need to know what that is. Why you've chosen to participate in it, right? And what are your goals from participating? Because young people nowadays want to be involved and engaged in that way. And so if you explain to them what your goals are and your motivation for it, then they're part of that. They can help in that way, especially your front of the house staff. I would recommend sharing your full menus with them, all of the menus that you are planning for Dine in Brooklyn, and not on the day of, but like well in advance, so that they have time to look at it. If you have menu descriptions or things like that, if the menu items are not your traditional menu items that you find on your menu, then give them the descriptions of those items ahead of time. So knowledge is important. What days and hours your menus are available. If you're not participating on the weekends, or you're doing all nights, but except for Friday and Saturday night, like what are the days and hours that you're participating, so they know. Because it does affect, and I'll talk about it in a minute, it does affect their paychecks. It affects their money, because usually the Dine in Brooklyn or the prefix menu is a lower price than your average check. And so they're worried about whether or not they're going to make money. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. Are substitutions allowed? In other words, whatever's on that prefix menu, will you allow your guests to substitute? And if there are substitutions allowed, lay it out for the staff what exactly it is, so that they're comfortable with that information when they're guest forward. Will you allow guests to choose between the two menus? So if you're offering your regular menu and also the dine-in menu, will you allow, like, I want the dine-in menu, but my friend only wants the a la carte menu, will you allow that at the table? Or everybody at the table has to get that dine-in menu? Because, again, this is all information that will help them when they get guests forward in order to get the message across and be comfortable with the information. Are there any beverages offered? Do you have wine pairings? Do you have special cocktails? Things like that that really make a difference in building that check average. Because you're at a lower price point, you want to build the check average. You don't want to just settle for the $28, $15, or $12 price point. You want to be able to build the average. The other thing that is important that I just want to bring up before I go into sort of staff training stuff is the POS, is programming ahead of time the POS and testing it out so that the kitchen is comfortable with the way the ticket looks, what's coming through, the abbreviations, whatever, and also the staff knows where to find these items, and they're not like day one going, how do I ring it up, kind of thing. So those are things that you can prepare your staff for in advance, so that once you begin Dine in Brooklyn, that they have all the information they need. And I always recommend saying pre-shift a week before is a good time to start having the conversation. Nobody remembers anything you say once. You have to repeat yourself numerous times, as we all know. And so if you start the week before and you're bringing it up in every pre-shift, all of these kind of points, by the time you open the doors on that dine-in day, they're the first day, that they're ready and they're prepared. So that's that information. So let's talk a little bit about the front of the house positions. For your reservations and front desk staff, they also have to have all of this information prior, so then when they're taking reservations, they're able to make the connection with the guests. So if somebody's calling to make a reservation during Dine in Brooklyn week and they're not already in your system, the question is, are you joining us for Dine in Brooklyn? So you can then capture whether or not, how many people are actually calling to reserve that you weren't already in your system. And it also gives you the opportunity once they come in to say, oh, we understand you're joining us for Dine in Brooklyn. We're so happy to see you. If that's in their record when they come back again, let's say they have a great experience and they come back, now you say, oh, you joined us for the first time for Dine in Brooklyn and you've come back. We're so happy to see you back. So now you've got this great connection. So that front desk and reservation staff is really helpful in helping make that connection and continue the connection long after the event is over. For your servers and bartenders, they are the opportunity for you to really make an impact here. And we were just having the conversation is that it's a lower price point. And so they're worried about their money, about their income, and whether or not during that 10-day period, I think it's the 20th to the 30th, is that correct? During that 10-day period, are they going to make less money? And how's that going to affect their lives? And that's important. So giving them information that they need in order to help build the check. So is there a wine pairing? Is there specialty cocktails that they can suggest? If you are, let's say, a Mexican restaurant and you don't put guac and chips onto that prefix menu, that's a great first sell to add on to that prefix menu. Would you like to start with guac and chips? You don't have sides on the prefix menu, so now they can add, would you like to share a side? All of these ways help them build that check average so that they're not stuck in that $28, $15, or $12 check average. They're able to sell items off your menu and bring that check average up, which then enhances the guest experience because now they're trying outside of just that limited menu. And so if you've shared that information with them and your goals on that and you want repeat guests to come back because they've had a great experience, then those types of things help to build that up and to bring that up. And so your servers and your bartenders are key in that. Also, because someone's looking at the dine-in menu doesn't mean that they're going to treat them as second-class citizens, that, oh, they're on the cheaper menu, or this guest over here is looking at the a la carte menu, I'm going to not take as good a care of them. You're sort of, excuse the phrase, cutting off your nose to spite your face. You brought people in. You want to make the very best impression on them because you want, hopefully, that they'll come back and be loyal, be regular guests. So I dine out all the time as a single diner because I travel a lot for the Four Seasons hotels. And I dine out often. I sit at the bar, and I can't tell you how many times the bartender will spend more time talking to a regular than talking to me. The regular is already your captured audience. I am not. So if he or she would engage with me, I might then recommend. I might come back every night that I'm in town, and I'm usually there a week. I might do all these other things, but if I'm ignored, I take out my phone or my book or whatever, and they've lost that opportunity to capture because they're talking to the regulars. So with Dine in Brooklyn, you have the opportunity with people who are not your regulars to really get your staff to buy into what your goals are, and that's to increase, to get new guests to reach out. That if they're part of that, then they're really engaged with those guests and not just treating them like the second-class citizens because they're on the lower price menu. So those are all things that really help with your staff to really get them engaged again way in advance, not the day of, and to keep them engaged all through that 10-day program. You can do some contests with them, which helps them want to sell. One good one that I've seen before is where you take, you say whoever sells the most add-ons to a dine-in menu, to restaurant week menu or dine-in menu, would get to order off the menu or get a prize of some whatever it is that you do for contests. But then it engages them to try to really engage those guests and really upsell, and everybody benefits from that, from those opportunities. I think that was pretty much all of my notes and things that relate to that. Any questions for me that I can answer that can help you in this sort of the staff training part of the front of the house process?
And one question I had was, is there a tradition of Dine in Brooklyn specials that carries over into the beyond the 10 days of Dine in Brooklyn? Because at our restaurant, we're considering doing some special dishes that we haven't done before, that are a little more ambitious and perhaps a little better in terms of price point. And I can see it creating momentum for maintaining new menu items long after the promotion.
I have seen, and again, Dan could probably answer this as well, but on the front of the house, I have seen oftentimes that people use opportunities for experimenting with menu items to see what the response is, to use them in this way, so that then they get a guest response. What's the biggest sellers? What's the most popular? And it's a way to test out new items in a way, with a captured audience. So I think Dan could probably answer that. But I think as long as the staff understands that these could possibly be new menu items, and these are the descriptions of them and what it is exactly you're working towards here. Again, if you give them that information of why, they're gonna help you, and they're gonna respond to you then with the information. They're gonna know, oh, well, guest said they really like this, or a regular who tried this said they like this over the one that's already on the menu, kind of thing. So you do get that, you will get that response if you get the staff to buy into that. Any other questions?
All right. Thank you so much, Beatrice. That was fantastic. A lot of information, a lot of valuable insight and tips. So now we're going to hear from Dan Soloway, founder of Kitchen Options. He's going to speak to us about creating delicious yet cost-effective restaurant week menus.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I'm also a partner of Jake's Handcrafted here in Park Slope, Brooklyn, so I understand what you go through as operators of businesses as well. One of the major things about a price fix menu is trying to make it fit your everyday food cost percent that you're trying to aim for. Like the gentleman said, you're trying to be ambitious. You want to garner repeat business off of your dine-in menu, but you also have to be concerned about your food cost. First and foremost, because you may actually do a larger number of covers than you traditionally do during this promotional 10-day period of dine-in, and you don't want to take a bath in a bigger way. You'd rather minimize a loss if you're going to take one on your menu. So the first thing is to choose menu items that are moderately priced. So this is a great opportunity to, if you're, I'm kind of using these loosely, but get rid of your lobster and caviar items on the menu, right? Also want to look at portions. Does your price fix menu offer you the opportunity to potentially go with a smaller portion, because there may be an expectation that the guest has that they know they're not getting the full a la carte menu? That's a slippery slope that you as a business owner have to gauge for yourself, whether the guest thinks that they're coming in for the full experience of the menu but the cost is reduced, or if they know because they've been around town and they've done dine-in and other pre-fee scenarios that menu cost may also dictate the portion size changes. Like if you're doing the 2-course lunch, it would be more in the executive lunch, like it's built for speed, it's a little smaller kind of scenario. So these are things to keep in mind. You may want to look at using seasonal ingredients. It's difficult if you have a very ethnic menu, like for instance, I'll just use the avocado in Mexican cuisine. Everybody, and Beatrice said the same, everybody expects guacamole and chips all year round in a Mexican cuisine-based restaurant. So even if the avocado price is double now what it will be when they're in season, somebody is going to expect that to be on the menu. But that doesn't mean that at the highest price point of that item, even though it's not local, but it's not in season at the moment, doesn't mean that that should be an item that you focus for your cuisine. And that could translate to any ethnicity or culture, or just even an American restaurant that's using seasonal. So what I would say is try to figure out what's available. In March, it's an interesting scenario because we're just at the early spring period, so you don't have a ton of seasonality. Like for instance, English peas are coming around now, but they're still a little bit scarce and a little bit costly. Same with wild mushrooms like morels. The price point now at the beginning of the season, because there is no abundance and there's scarcity and the quality isn't where it should be, would not be an item to use. A cultivated mushroom like a cremini that's available all the time because they're from underground caves in Massachusetts or Pennsylvania is a perfect example of something to use, and it's a great accompaniment for a protein or a vegetable medley. So those are the kinds of things that I would say to look at. The price point is also obviously fantastic for creating a cost-effective and delicious menu. I think that the other things to do are look at your everyday food cost percent and decide whether it's feasible to continue to hit your goal on that. So at a $28 price fixed 3-course menu, a 30% food cost means that your food to you has to cost $8.40. Is that possible? So, or during dine-in, do you have to increase your food cost that's normally 30 to 33%? Give yourself a 10% buffer. Obviously, if you have a lower cost, if you are more in the like diner pizzeria in the low 20s, maybe you have to go from 22 to 25. You have to make the adjustment. It's a promotional period. You're trying to garner new and repeat guests, so maybe you look at that as part of the marketing budget, instead of part of your food budget, and you take a little P&L hit, but you get hundreds more guests who you hope to translate into future returning guests. Sometimes we have a disconnect between the food cost and the labor cost. So a great way to make a very cost-effective menu is to keep the food cost where it is, but make a efficient and easy to serve menu so that you reduce the labor cost. Maybe your prep staff could be reduced by having more things produced by your line cooks. A great example for that would be soup. It could be made by one person in batches. So you're getting large volume, you don't have huge prep staff involved with the product, and on the pickup, when your expediter calls for soup, it's an 8-ounce ladle in a bain-marie setup that's heated to the proper Department of Health required temperature into the bowl, and somebody garnishes with a parsley leaf or chervil or a crouton or whatever it is, and therefore you're built for speed and efficiency. So your food cost may be similar to your everyday or a little elevated, but you've reduced the labor out of the front end of the experience. The guest doesn't know, and you're still delivering the same quality you would on a daily basis, but you're built for speed and efficiency. It also helps your front of the house staff, who may normally do 100 people for lunch, and maybe your cover count's gonna go up to 175 for your 2-course lunch, and they're a little bit more overwhelmed than normal. So having your product come out of the kitchen, your appetizers, your entrees, your desserts at a good pace that's well spread out allows your dining room staff to be able to do the upsell, still devote the amount of time to the guest, get these new and unique guests to become repeat guests, and give them an overall good experience while potentially raising the check average. Salad, similarly, you don't dress a salad an hour before lunch, but you could do the mixing of the ingredients beforehand, and then somebody, with tongs or gloves is just plating salads and dressing as you go. Makes for a very cost-effective item for both food cost, because the lettuce is a great moderately priced good with a good margin, and then the labor cost is also reduced. For desserts, I would look again to things that could be made in batches and ahead of time. So a pudding or a custard, a creme brulee, where you're making a large batch of the custard itself, You can pour it into ramekins, which also means that you know exactly what each serving costs because it's already pre-measured. You bake them or chill them ahead of time if it's an ice cream or a sorbet, and then the pickup is also very easy. And you can just sheet pan them all out, and you're on a speed rack, and your pastry team has them in a lowboy or in your walk-in refrigerator, and you really just set up for speed. Cookie plates are great. I'm going to just use the term cake and ice cream. Your brownie a la modes, things that are pre-cut, and then scoop the ice cream and send them out. It's wonderful when you have dinner parties. They tend to get larger during the dine-in period. 8 people. Now it's like brownies on a plate, scooping ice cream, and these folks get creme brulee, and your pastry staff can bang out an 8 or a 10 top in like 6 minutes. So it's just a really nice thing for your staff to be able to accomplish, and they're also moderately priced and helps your food cost. Cross-utilization, so utilizing menu items that are already existing, but maybe you vary the dish. So you may use a hanger steak on the menu for a sandwich. Now that hanger steak could basically be seasoned or marinated to be your Thai beef for your Thai beef salad. So you already have the hanger steak in the house. So if it doesn't get used on your 2-course lunch, it can go back to your a la carte menu, maybe on your regular dinner service, so that you don't have product in the house that you don't normally use. And then at the end of dine-in, you're like, great, I've got 50 pounds of beef I have no use for on the menu. That's another way that you don't realize that you may ultimately, that could be a P&L effect, is you have all these ingredients that you have no purpose for anymore unless they become menu items. So that's another thing to consider. Working with your vendors. You know you have 10 days and you know what your menu is. So if you call up a vendor and say, I want to have a moderately priced fish on the menu, I'm going to serve a 5-6 ounce portion for my lunch, but I will only use you and I'm only going to use cake. What can we do? They give you a price, you're kind of like, but I think my forecast is I'm going to use 600 pounds. Then they give you a 20 cents discount per pound. All of a sudden it gets you to the price point where you need. They could be the same for boneless, skinless chicken breasts, whole chickens, if your menu is going to be half a roast chicken and a couple of sides. So you have to work with your vendor. You have the information up front of what you're going to do. They're kind of your partner in this. So say, I'm going to give you a lot of business for this week and a half period, but I need a little help on the cost. So that's a terrific way to, it's kind of unfortunately spreading the wealth. You're going to take a little hit, they're going to take a little hit, but really at the end of the day, they're going to do the dollar volume of business, so they should appreciate you coming to them saying, we're really going to do a lot of work with each other this month. If you have a more local / farm-to-table philosophy at your restaurant, or you like to use local goods and sustain the local economy, then talk to your growers ahead of time. What can we do with this lettuce? Or what's coming up that is going to be priced according to this kind of price fix scenario that I'm getting into, and let your farmer, or it could be your distributors, tell you these are some of the goods that we're seeing are moderately priced, and that will really help you. One of the last points is pasta is always very cost effective. A 1 pound box, you might be able to get 4 portions that the pasta alone is just 25 cents. So then if you throw in the protein, or maybe you do a vegetarian option also, especially if you keep it seasonal, you'll have a great opportunity there. There's even if you're not doing an American or European restaurant, the Asian restaurants have noodles, so you can always kind of see that there's some use for pasta on anybody's menu, even if it's not like a normal everyday thing. And my last bit of advice on ingredients for seasonality is try not to use ingredients at the beginning or the end of the season. There's an inverse relationship between the quality and the cost and their availability. And you definitely don't want to get caught with a menu item where you can't get the goods. So I know that there's the period coming up now is at the end of this month, but I believe there's a dine-in that had been in past years in August. So that's a good example of using something that was on the, in July you loved the menu item, but it may not be around in August, and you have it on your menu and you're at the end of the season and all of a sudden the price doubled because there's no availability, so there's still demand for this holdover item, and you've gotten caught in the middle and you have no flexibility because people are coming in really excited to eat whatever that is, and now you can't provide it, or you can, but you're going to lose on it. So that kind of wraps it up for the effective and cost-effective and great menu design for Dine in Brooklyn.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Dan?
I have one.
Please.
You know, one thought is that Dine in Brooklyn could be seen as a little bit of a lab experiment and live process to expand your already clientele's broadening their palate, so to speak.
Sure.
And reaching new clientele that in our case, a home-based menu that seems very home-cooked and traditional. It gives us an option to reach people who are more perhaps ambitious in terms of their eating interest. Should we be trying to create a balance? Obviously, we could be more conservative and just do what we do well and discount it a little bit. But my one instinct is to try really almost experimentally a few items that could expand the whole approach of the restaurant.
I think that I would take it on a case-by-case basis. In particular, like my advice is a little bit more macro. It's for the in general what one can do. I think for what you're expressing, your endeavor sounds like it should be what it is. Like you have a very set menu, but you're looking to do some experimentation to broaden the horizons for your regulars and also wow some newcomers. And I think that you should take the opportunity if that's what you believe fits. I think within that, though, comes a lot of these, purchasing and operation-based theories and practices, and what Beatrice said about how to work with your dining staff, and also make sure that your wait staff and your culinary staff have dovetailed on their thought process about it, right? So I think that you're heading in the right direction. Others may say, you know what, we are going to just do smaller portions of what we do for less. And there's other people who are just like, you can always come in and order the 40 things on the a la carte. We're just giving you a choice of 2, 2, 2 for the dinner, or lunch, just 2 and 2, and and take a flyer on what they're going to do for the brunch menu. So I think that you're heading in the right direction for your business and what you want to accomplish.
I think just to add, whatever you decide to do, stay in your lane. Like, don't go so far away from who you are and because you don't want to confuse people. Mm-hmm. So you want to keep them in your lane so that if they want to come back, it's not like, oh my God, this is totally different, right? So, do the experimentation, which I think is great, but don't go so far away from who you are and what your concept is.
Yeah, and steps of service aspects too. Like, don't start flambeing things tableside. Like, this is experimentation should happen behind the scenes in the kitchen, where you and your culinary team figure out a new menu and menu set, but then keep everything else well within what you do on a daily basis, so that you have the greatest rate of success. Yeah. Well, people all of a sudden, the chef comes up with a great idea, and he's like, I think it would be really great if we hit it with a splash of brandy at the table. I mean, doesn't always work out so well.
Keep it simple during this time.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dan. That was fantastic information. Beatrice, again. And thank you again to the Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams office, his team. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. It's so funny. I was thinking about this.
Yeah. Do you have your card by any chance?
One of the things
You don't? Well, if you
mentioning, I think I
email me,
brought
I'll
it up,
add you
like,
to
right before
our
we started talking.
alerts list.